And your mind and body want to protect you. So they're instantly going to focus in on what you're afraid of, what you don't want to have happen. Welcome to Life of a CISO. I'm Dr. Eric Cole, your host, and we'll be taking you on a journey each week on what it takes to be a CISO and what are solutions that you can implement today if you are currently a Chief Information Security Officer or if you want to be one in the future. This is Life of a CISO. Welcome to this week's episode of Life of a CISO with yours truly, Dr. Eric Cole. And Happy New Year. And I have one question for you. Are you ready for 2021? Because guess what? It's here and it's coming for you. And it can either be the best year, an average year, or the worst year you've ever had. But here's the coolest part of it all. You get to make that decision. You get to decide what happens and what occurs. So what I like to do in this episode is I've done several coaching calls already, even though it's just the beginning of the year. I sort of go 24/7, baby, right? There's a reason they call me the Energizer Bunny of cybersecurity, right? Because I don't stop. Boom, 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 like that little bunny, right? The Energizer Bunny, here we go. And I was getting asked that question going, Eric, what do I need to do to make sure that I can take advantage of the opportunities to become a world-class CISO in 2021? Or I got questions, Eric, 2020 was a little bit of a rough year. What are the things I need to focus on as a Chief Information Security Officer to maximize and take advantage of the opportunities that are out there and present to me? And what I realized is I was giving each person slightly different advice based on what was important to them and what they wanted to focus on. And I started putting together this list of what does a CISO need to do and focus on to make sure they are ready for 2021. And in the spirit of David Letterman, right, I have my top 10 list, right? It's always funny where I try to pick a number, whether it's 5 or 10 or 20. And what ends up happening is usually 70% comes pretty easy. Like the first 7 items on my list, boom, just flowed. And because I said I want to do a top 10 list, I had to really research and think and spend time to come up with those remaining 3. And what I always find is those tend to be the most impactful, right? Push yourself a little bit. Get out of the comfort zone, right? This is a bonus item. This isn't one of my items, but I find really good CISOs always come up with at least 5 solutions to a problem. Because let's face it, if you only have one option, that ain't a solution, right? If there's only one thing you could possibly do, that's just whatever came to mind, right? And if you only have 2, you have a dilemma picking between them. 3 gives you a little more creativity. With a little time, energy, and effort, you could probably, sorry, I still have this little bit of cold, but nothing's stopping me. I'm feeling great. I'm feeling good. It's just this little lingering cough that's going on here. So I'm going to keep powering through. So I'll just apologize for the cough, but we'll keep rocking and rolling. So as I said, 3 solutions you can come up pretty easily. 4 is going to take a little bit of work, but 5 is where you're going to really have to push yourself. Now, I'm not saying the 5th solution is always the best option. Very often, like when people look at houses, the first or second house is the one they end up buying. But what I find is when people are forced to look at 3, 4, and 5, it does a couple things. One, it really convinces them that the first or second house is really the right house. So now they're not going to have buyer's remorse. If you only look at 2 houses and you buy the second one, you're always going to say, what if? What if there was a better one? What if there was a better option? But if you now push yourself to do 5, you now are very confident you're picking the right option and you now know what you're really looking for and pushed the creative juices. So I urge you, as we enter into 2021 as a Chief Information Security Officer, when you have a decision to make, always push yourself to have 5 different options. Always push yourself to think creative. What are some other options? How can I get creative with this? And what it's going to do is get you out of your comfort zone and let you focus in and make sure you're really picking that best possible option. So as I go through my Are You Ready for 2021, I realize that many of these might not seem specifically cybersecurity focused. And that's okay. Because what I find is whether you have a great year, an okay year, or a miserable year, very often doesn't have to do with the technology. You already have the knowledge to be world class. I just need to fix all those other things around you. And I just want to put something in perspective. What if 2020 was your best year? Now I want to be careful with this because I know people struggled. I know people lost jobs. I know people lost loved ones due to the epidemic and the craziness and everything that happened in 2020. And I'm not trying to play that down. I'm not trying to say ignore that. But to me, in 2020, I had my best year in business. I met some great friends. And do I wish it was different? Yes. Do I wish that there was an epidemic? Do I wish that we had our freedoms to go out and travel and do everything that we love to do? Absolutely. But the point is, you can look at anything and see good, or you can look at anything and see bad. And once again, sometimes it's harder than others to do that. I'm not trying to get anyone upset with me if something devastating happened in 2020. I'm not saying you ignore it, but I'm saying there's always positives and negatives in any situation. And that brings us to my first item. Are you ready for 2021? What are you focused on? Because what you're focused on is what you're going to attract. Race car drivers. If you focus on the wall, what do you think is going to happen? You're going to drive yourself right into the wall. I love sports cars. I love racetracks. I love high-speed racing. I just think it's an amazing thing, taking an automobile and going 150 miles an hour and keeping it on the track requires 100% concentration. And my issue is my mind's always going. So I need something that gives me 100% focus. And I remember one of the first times I was taking a lesson in a race car. And you have the person next to you. And if you're in a training car, the way the training car works is the person next to you that's training you has a little box that has 4 buttons on it. And when they press a button, it causes that tire in the car to drop or increase. So it basically causes you to spin out in the direction of that tire. And you're going along and you're ready for this, and they teach you one thing. When you're driving a race car, the one thing is when you start spinning out, focus on where you want to go. Focus on where you want to go back on the track. And there's a delay, but if you focus on that and do what you're told, you'll eventually get it back on the track. So I'm going my first time, and I'm like, push the button, man. Push it. I'm ready. And what do you think they do? Of course they don't push the button. They talk with you. They distract you. You start focusing on different things. And when you least expect it, they press that button and the car starts spinning. And what do you think everyone does, including me? Where do you think you look? Of course, you don't follow the directions. Of course, you don't look down the racetrack. Where does everybody look, including me? The wall, right? Everyone starts looking at the wall, right? Because that's what you're afraid of. And your mind and body want to protect you. So they're instantly going to focus in on what you're afraid of, what you don't want to have happen. And what does that do? It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. It then causes that to happen. If I didn't have that driver next to me, and as soon as I start spinning, I look at the wall, what do you think is going to happen? I'm going to drive right into the wall, right? So he takes my head, he pushes it like with all his might and focuses me on the racetrack. And then I go in and do that. And here's the craziest thing. The next time the car starts spinning, what do you think I do? Of course I learned, right? No. I look at the wall again. It took 5 times, right, before I naturally went in and looked where I was supposed to be looking. Because like I said, my mind has been trained to focus in on that negative, focus on that wall, because that's what we're afraid of. So we have to train ourselves to stop focusing in on what we're afraid of. Stop focusing in on the epidemic. Stop focusing in on all the bad things that happen. Stop focusing on everything. Focus on what you want to happen. Do you want to buy a house? Do you want to get a new car? Do you want to get a new job? That's what you need to focus on. But here's a couple of things. First, your mind doesn't do that naturally. You have to train it. You're going to have to train it. If you just sit there and you let your mind wander, it's going to focus on the wall. It's going to focus on all the negative things that is going to happen. So you have to forcefully and formally train it. Some people like index cards that they carry around with them. I like a binder where it's one of the plastic ones. So I slip in that front cover of the binder and I'm always looking at what I want to focus on. What do I want to have happen and what do I want to accomplish? Now, a couple of things here. When I'm in that race car, because I focus on the racetrack where I want to go, does that mean that magical unicorns come out of the engine and everything is perfect and everything magically works out? No! Sometimes, even when you're focused on the racetrack, you still hit the wall. Bad things still happen. It doesn't always go perfectly. Second, when I start focusing on the racetrack, does it instantly, boom, the car instantly stops spinning? No, there's a delay mechanism. And that's the worst feeling, because when I finally did it on my own, I'm looking at the track, I'm turning, and I'm still spinning. And I'm still heading towards the wall. But you have to believe and know that there's a purpose and it's going to work out, and keep doing the right thing. And more times than not, when you do, boom, the car comes out of the spin and goes back on the track, and you keep going down the racetrack. So I just want to let you know, this isn't magic voodoo formulas. Sometimes things still go bad. Sometimes you still go into the wall. Sometimes there's a delay. But if you focus on the wall, if you focus on the negative, I can guarantee that's what's going to happen. Now, if you focus on positive, you focus on what you want, and you focus on the road, I can't guarantee that it will always work out. But I can guarantee that if you focus on the wall, you will always crash into the wall. So which option do you want? Do you want the option where you always crash? Or do you want the option where you crash once in a while, but most of the time you're able to recover from the crash? This is what makes it so hard, because you're going to be doing this formula. And here's the other kicker. When you're on a racetrack, and I'm not going to get into all the dynamics of the tires and the treadless and all that stuff, but I will tell you, when you're going 150 plus miles an hour, you don't always see the little oil, the little slicks, or anything else. So you're going in this race car, even when you're not being trained and they don't have a box, and you think everything is great, and you're smiling, you're having a great time, you're talking on the radio, and you're just, yeah, this is awesome, everything's great. And all of a sudden, when you least expect it, it starts spinning. It's not like you're sitting there going, okay, I see a big oil slick in 3, 2, 1, I'm going to start spinning, and you're ready for it. It's when everything is going well and everything is going perfect and you least expect it. Boom. That's when it starts spinning. And if you're not ready, if you're not focused and you don't know what to do, that's when things start getting out of control and you go flying into that wall. And once again, I'm not picking on anyone, judging anyone, criticizing anyone. But to me, that's what happened with a lot of people. In 2020, they weren't ready, they weren't trained, they weren't focused, and they're driving along 2020 highway, and all of a sudden March and April hits, and the world shuts down, people are not ready, they don't know what to do, their car starts spinning, their focus is on fear, their focus on what could happen, and boom, that's why we saw so many people, unfortunately, inadvertently drive their life into that wall. So what I want you to do as we enter 2021, let's be ready. Let's be ready for anything that could possibly happen, and let's get focused and trained. Make yourself aware that when you're having the best day of your life, you're going to start spinning. Problems are going to happen. Things are going to occur that you're not ready. And the question is, have you trained yourself to focus on this is exactly what I'm expecting? Life is going to work out. I'm focused. I'm clear. And you keep looking at the road and get back on that road. Or are you not trained, not aware, and let the mind take over and you focus on that wall and drive right into it? So make sure, any position, but I'm focused on a Chief Information Security Officer. As you enter 2021, I will guarantee things are going to go wrong with cybersecurity. There's going to be another SolarWinds breach. That was another spin, right? We thought we were finishing the year. Everyone thought the year was great. And boom, all of a sudden that breach hit and people's cybersecurity started spinning out of control. So I'm not saying as a CISO, you should be doom and gloom that the world is going to end. No. As a CISO, I believe everything's going to work out, and I'm going to implement the best effective strategies for my clients, and we're going to be ready for anything that happens. I'm not hoping for a spin out. I'm not focused on the spin out, but I'm ready for it. I know that it's going to happen, and I know that when it happens, I'm prepared and ready that I can turn the negative into a positive. And because cybersecurity, it always happens that way. Your organization that you're working for is probably breached and you're unaware of it. It's probably compromised. Most organizations are compromised for 2 to 3 years before it ever becomes public. So that car is going to start spinning, right? You have to be ready for it. You have to be ready and focused. So as we enter this year, start focusing on, okay, what are the things that could go wrong? Most importantly, there's a breach. If there's a major breach at your organization, what can you do right now to minimize it? Maybe threat hunting. What can you do when it happens so you're prepared? Put in better detection, better monitoring, better outbound analytics. So that's what you want to start looking for, being focused on positive, best for the organization, but recognizing that bad things will happen, and how can you handle them, address them, and get the cybersecurity car back on the road as soon as possible. Second, what are your goals for this year? Now, I typically focus in on 6 to 7 goals. I do goals for business, which I'm going to focus on here, but I am going to mention the other areas. You do need to make sure you have goals for your health, goals for your mindset, goals for friends and family members, because that is full integrated. So when I go in, there's a lot of different methods for goals. I like the SMARTER method. So any goal that I'm going to create, it needs to be specific and measurable. I want to be a world-class CISO. Great. That is good. But that's not specific. How do you measure that? How do you know at the end of the year whether you accomplish that? Well, I want to have 4 international clients that are each paying me $10K a month retainer. Awesome. That is specific and that's measurable. You can, at the end of the year, determine whether you met that or not. So you just have to make sure that when we're looking at goals, they're not sort of dreams and visions and wonderful. I want to be rich. I want to have a car. I want to be a world-class CISO. Those are not goals. I want to have $500K in my savings account at the end of the year. That is specific and measurable. I want to own a Jaguar XLS convertible, blue, right? Be as specific as possible by June of this year. That's specific and that's measurable. So spend some time thinking about what do you want to accomplish in your business as a CISO and make them specific and measurable. Then you want them to be achievable. Now, I do these in pairs, so specific and measurable. If it's specific, you can always measure it. So I did those together. Achievable, but risky. That's the AR. You want them to be achievable, but a little risky. You want to push yourself a little bit. Now, if you're currently have 2 clients that you're making $10K a month, and that's your goal, that's achievable because you're doing it today, right? If you have a 2-year contract with 2 clients and that contract goes through 2022 and they're both paying you $10K a month and your goal is to make $20K a month, that's already, I mean, that's achievable. I mean, that's a piece of cake. Unless you really screw something up or they go out of business, that's very, very achievable. But it's no risk to, I mean, you're not juiced at all. Right? That's not juiced at all. Now, on the other hand, if you're starting a brand new business, you have no income right now, and your goal is to have 10 clients giving you $10K a month, so $1 million a month, that is risky. That's very risky. But it's probably not achievable, right? That's probably pushing it a little bit. Right? And I would in that one say, show me the plan. I want to see the specific plan because remember, goals need to be achievable and risky. For you, if you're starting off brand new, you have 0 income right now, I think that a very achievable and risky goal would be to have 2 clients by the end of the year that are paying you $5K. So that would mean by April 1st of this year, you would have 1 client paying you $5K. By July, you would have a second client paying you $5K. And then by September, you would have a client paying you $10K. So now you're finishing up with $20K a month or 240. So just a little shy of $250,000. To me, that's very achievable. And it's a little risky, but I'm not starting off, right? If you're brand new starting off with nothing, that could be a nice balance. Now, if you're like, oh no, Eric, I have a plan I could easily do 1 a quarter, and you want to shoot for 3, $5K and 1 $10K, or what might be better is shoot for 4 $5K and upgrade 1 to $10K, right? That works too. But you want to make sure you're balancing that achievable with realistic. You want to be like, I'm pushing myself out of my comfort zone, but I do deep down inside believe that I can achieve this. Then you want to be time-based. Notice all of these, I'm putting specific times. And here's the trick. Don't make all your goals and everything December 31st, 2021, right? Because it's not creating an urgency. Notice what I did. I didn't say that you're going to be making $250K on December 31st, because that technically assumes somebody could write you a check on December 29th, right? And you don't do anything the whole year. No, to get there, you got to back plan. You would need to have 1 $5K client by March 1st. You'd have to have a second $5K client by June 1st. You'd have to have notice, so now you're creating quarterly sub goals to create that larger goal. Now your primary focus is, what do I need to do to get 1 client by the end of this quarter that's going to give me a $5K retainer? And that becomes the focus. So you want to make sure they're timed with the sub goals. Then some people stop at SMART, but I go in and I add an ER to it. So E is exciting. Does it excite you? I mean, goals need to juice you up. They need to get you excited so you want to achieve them. For example, I was working with somebody who was starting a vCISO business. And one of the goals was that they would invoice all their clients within 15 days of the work. And this was a huge one because last year, when I did a review with them, they only invoiced $200K. And you ready for this? And this is true for a lot of small businesses. When I did a detailed review with them, I spent the day with them. There was $130,000, almost 50% of their income, that they forgot to bill for. They just got busy. It was an hour here, an hour there, an hour. It adds up, right? 1 or 2 hours every day or every week that you don't bill for adds up very, very quickly. So his goal was to maximize what he was doing, was to make sure that he would invoice every client within 15 days. One problem: he was a brilliant cybersecurity professional. He was a brilliant strategist. He hated accounting. That didn't excite him. That frustrated him. That got him angry. Every time he thought about doing that, it got him frustrated. He didn't like it. So he said, okay, you need to switch your goal. He goes, what do you mean? Your goal is defined by January 31st, is to find a part-time bookkeeper that starting in February will bill out all your clients within 15 days. And your goal is every day you enter your hours. Now, we split it. He still didn't like that, but that at least excited him because he's like, great. If I just enter my hours every day, somebody else will do the invoice. Somebody else will do bills. Somebody else will do accounts receivable. And that got him excited. So what we did is we switched the goal to giving it to somebody else within his budget. And then his goal was much smaller that now became exciting to him because he didn't have to do the boatload. This is where, if you want to achieve your goals, you need to spend the time like I'm doing here to get them where they're exciting to you. And then finally, the R is, are they relevant to what you want to achieve? Are they relevant to what you want to achieve and all your other goals? So I had a friend of mine, and I am big on hobbies. That's one of the items I'll talk about in a little bit. I'm very big on having hobbies. But I went in, and a friend of mine said one of his goals for 2021 was he was going to play golf once a week, play 18 holes once a week. And I said, okay, dude, with all your other goals, he had 2 little kids. You want to spend time with your kids. You want to coach. You want to take your wife on date night. You want to exercise. You want to build a business. I said, you realize playing 18 holes of golf is about 5 hours, and you're going to have to practice. So you're going to have to practice at least 2 to 3 hours before that. So you're talking 8 hours, almost what normal people put a workday in, 8 hours a week on this goal. Is that really relevant to all your other goals? Is that really important for doing that? And when he really thought about it, he said, well, no. Friends of his play golf. Other people that he knows said golf and said, you should go golfing. He said, okay. I said, what's really the intent behind the golf? He goes, well, it's to be social. It's to meet other people. And it's to exercise. And I said, okay. You also want to get better exercise and fitness. And to be honest with you, no golfers get mad at me. But if you're riding around in a golf cart and you're drinking 3 beers, it's not really exercise, right? Come on, man, right? You're fooling yourself. It ain't exercise, right? Come on. So you got to go in and be a little there. So what we decided instead was he needed something he could do in the evening, like 8 or 9 p.m. after the kids went to bed, exercise and social, and fit those criteria. And guess what we decided instead? Tennis. Golf, you can't play at 9 o'clock at night when your kids go to bed. Tennis, you can. Tennis, you're running around, and in 30 or 40 minutes, especially if you're playing singles, you can get a really good workout in. You pick up a 20-minute doubles at the end. You get to meet people. You get to socialize. You get to exercise. And now, even if you do tennis twice a week, that's 2 hours that you can do in the evening after the kids are asleep, instead of 8 hours that require a weekend when your kids are awake and active. So we switched that to something that was more relevant to his lifestyle and what he was looking to achieve. So we want to go in and make sure, and once again, all areas of your life, but focus in on the CISO. What is it this year? If you could do one thing in your Chief Information Security Officer career, what would be that one thing? Is it to get a CISO position in which you're making $300K a year? Is it to start your own business where you have 4 clients and you're making $250K a year? If you have an existing business of $500K right now, is it to grow it to $750K? But what is the one thing that's specific, measurable, achievable, risky, time-based, excites you, and relevant that you want to achieve in your career? Get very clear about that. Now, that is the one top priority goal. Then you want to break it down into sub-goals. What do you now need to do quarterly in order to accomplish that? What do you need to do monthly? What do you need to do weekly? So if we do that first one, that you want to go in and get a $300K job as a CISO at a Fortune 500 company. Great. What are the skill sets that are a must-have to get that job that you don't currently have? And what of those can you achieve in the next 4 months? So your next 4 months is focused on getting those skills that you must have or that would make you a very desirable candidate. Also, you're probably going to have to, for a job like that, you're going to either have to go in inside somebody you know that recommends you, or you're going to have a headhunter. Why don't you do both? So why don't you go in and say, okay, the first quarter, I'm going to also identify 2 headhunters, and twice a month, I'm going to go to networking events to start meeting other executives. So you see how I'm laying this out now. And that's what you want to do. The reason why people don't achieve their goals is 2. 1, it's not specific, measurable, achievable, risky, time-based, exciting, and relevant. And 2, they don't have a plan. If you just sit there every day and say, by December 31st, I want to be a CISO of a Fortune 500 company making $300K a year, and that's all you do, it ain't going to happen. Now, maybe you're lucky, right? But it ain't going to happen, right? Luck is an excuse that lazy people use when they see hardworking people achieve their goals. Don't get mad at me, right? But that's what luck is. So you need to start taking action monthly, quarterly, and start breaking that down. Start going in and putting the pieces together. Third, one of my favorite quotes, and it's attributed to various people throughout history. The one I heard was attributed to Henry Ford, but other people said that he didn't create it. It doesn't matter. The quote is still valid. Whether you think you can or think you can't, you're probably right. Because the mind is a goal-achieving machine. If you believe that you can do it, then you have a much better chance than if you don't believe. Now remember, you still want it to be achievable and risky. You still want to balance those 2 things, right? If you're 80 years old and you want to be the starting quarterback for an NFL football team, probably a little hard, right? I would probably work with you saying, what are you trying to achieve from that? Are you trying to get confidence? Are you trying to get love, connection, what is the human need that you're trying to get from that? And let's try to come up with something that might be a little more achievable and risky balance there, right? So there's always crazy, ridiculous extremes. But on the other hand, if you're focused enough, what if I told you a 51-year-old that had no experience in running restaurants or franchises for that matter at 51, before that individual died, became not only a billionaire, but built one of the most well-known, profitable fast food franchises in the world. And at 51, it was merely a thought. No experience, nothing. Who am I talking about? KFC, the Colonel, right? Kentucky Fried Chicken. Read his story. I actually think it was 53, not 51, but I was trying to be conservative with the facts here. But the point is, at 51, he lost his job and he had zero experience. Now, most people will tell you that you can lose more money in restaurants in any other area. It's a risky area if you don't have experience. And franchises are one of the trickiest components to set up and do it correctly. And they would also have told you that he was competing against McDonald's and Burger King, some gigantic franchises. So you look at that goal, and most people would say that's not achievable. But he had a dream, a goal, he laid it out, he systematically didn't take no for an answer, and he believed in his heart that he could do it, and he did. So I'm all for pushing yourself. But like I said, there's a line between a job that everybody who does it, NFL quarterbacks, is under 40. Well, sorry, besides Tom Brady, right? Most are under 40, right? Sorry, Tom, right? How about under 50, right? On that front. And typically have been doing it since they were in their mid-20s. So is it possible that an 80-year-old could maybe, right? I don't want to be a dream crusher here, but you get the idea here, that there's balances there, but ultimately you have to believe in it. I was coaching a CISO, and he wanted to start his own vCISO business. And every time I talked to him, he was always like, Eric, I just can't do it. My dad and my grandparents all tried to be entrepreneurs, and it's not in my blood. I just can't be an entrepreneur. But he really wanted to be an entrepreneur. After 6 months of coaching him, I did two things. I refunded his money, and I hooked him up with a very good headhunter, and I said, listen, you're going to make an amazing CISO for a Fortune 500 company. You're going to make $300,000 or $400,000. You're going to make more than your dad or your grandparents made. You're going to be successful, and you're going to provide for your family. But you do not believe in yourself to be a CISO. Maybe in a couple of years you will. Maybe in a couple of years after being a CISO at a company, you'll be confident. I said, but right now, you're hurting yourself. You're hurting your family, and this isn't accomplishing anything. You right now believe that you can be a CISO for a Fortune 500 company. You don't believe that you can start and run your own business. So let's meet you where you're at. Let's get happy and excited about that, because that's awesome. Right now, you're a senior engineer. So going from a senior engineer that's making 120 to within a year being a CISO, because he had a ton of experience, he just didn't have the confidence. I said, does that excite you? Yes. Do you believe that? Absolutely. Great. And we had to meet him where he was so he could accomplish that. So you need to make sure that you believe in yourself, you believe in what you can or can't do. Now, I know this was my top 10, but I got really excited in the beginning, and these are supposed to be 30 minutes, and I'm going on 40. So what I'm going to do is tune in next week. I'm going to do part 2. So part 1 of Are You Ready for 2021? Because it's coming for you. Make sure you're focused on what you really want. Focus on positive. Focus on getting the car on the road and not on hitting the wall. Create one specific business goal, smart or specific, measurable, achievable, risky, time-based, excites you, and relevant, and get your mindset. Whether you believe you can or believe you can't, you're probably right. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Re-listen to it because this is the magic. If you can get focused with specific, measurable, achievable, risky, time-based, exciting, relevant goals, and you have the right mindset, you can be unstoppable. But make sure you join me next week where I cover the remaining 7 items to make sure you are ready for 2021.